Reports indicate that the Toronto Maple Leafs are considering moving veteran Wayne Simmonds. We'll discuss the possibilities, plus we have an absolutely huge day on the NHL waiver wire. We have a new claim from yesterday and 60 players on waivers today, plus we have some serious allegations against defenseman Ian Cole. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at here today. Tons of players on waivers. We'll start with the waivers news here. This is going to take a while to get through. We do have a claim from yesterday. The Arizona Coyotes have claimed defenseman Juuso Valimaki on waivers from the Calgary Flames. So the former 2017 draft selection, been trying to get himself situated in, obviously in a spot with the Calgary Flames where he could be a full-time NHLer. Has had a lot of up and down time. They have a really deep blue line now, and he gets to go get a fresh start in Arizona, and have a spot where he can play more regularly and get a bigger role. So it's good for him and good for the player. It's unfortunate for the Flames, but at this point, it's something that they had to do. I'm surprised they weren't able to maybe work out a trade ahead of time to get something in return. But either way, that is your claim. Now, staying with the Coyotes before we get into the huge list of new players on waivers, the Arizona Coyotes today also confirmed that Alex Chiasson, who was there on a PTO, is not getting a contract and has been released. I know a lot of people thought with that Coyotes roster that instead of calling it a PTO, you could call it like a walk-on, kind of like you do in football, but he's not getting signed. That's really unfortunate for Alex Chiasson. He's been you could say a fringe NHLer for a while, but he's bounced around, but he's always seemed to find a spot in the minutes to stick around and contribute. He's extended his career probably longer than some might have thought. I'm not sure what this means for him as far as his playing career goes, if he'll get another chance somewhere or what is going to happen. Maybe he heads to Europe. Not really clear right now, but he's not getting a contract in Arizona. That's the only one we have confirmed today for being released. There are some other players on PTOs, including a few signings, which we'll get to a little bit later, and some more players we're waiting to get word on, which may not come for a little bit longer. Now, the long list of waivers for today, like I said, 60 players in total. I'd be shocked if there isn't a few claims tomorrow. Yesterday was not nearly this long of a list. I'm surprised there's some players that snuck through yesterday, like goalie Joey Decord, for example. I thought for sure he was getting picked up, maybe a few others, but here we go. The Anaheim Ducks have Josh Mahura. The Arizona Coyotes, Lauren Dauphin, John Gillies, and Cam Dineen. The Boston Bruins, here's some interesting names. Of course, Chris Wagner, who spent a fair bit of time in the minors over the past couple of seasons. Defenseman Mike Riley and veteran Nick Foligno. That's obviously a little bit surprising. I know that Foligno's fallen out of favor. It hasn't performed well the past few years. Really, ever since he's left Columbus, things have not gone well for him. The whole time he was in Toronto, he didn't score a single goal. Battled injuries. Then he signed in Boston. Just hasn't been the same. He's getting older and just, I don't know. It's looking like his time in the NHL is coming to a close soon. And at this point, Nick Foligno, I don't know if he's going to get picked up either, to be honest. He's making a cap hit of $3.8 million. Mike Riley, interesting defenseman. Wouldn't be shocked if he's picked up, but he has another year on the deal besides the current one at $3 million. So I don't know. That's possible, but that second year might be a deterrent for some people. So in Boston, that's going to mean some players like AJ Greer and Jack Stanika are going to make the roster and stick with the big club here. The Columbus Blue Jackets replaced Emil Benstrom, another player who was at one point a promising prospect. I thought he would be more established by now. The Blackhawks have placed Buddy Robinson. That's not too surprising. The Avalanche have placed Mikhail Maltsev and Anton Bleed on waivers. Of course, they had Martin Kaut and Shane Bowers both sneak through waivers yesterday, both cleared, so they'll be assigned to the AHL. The Dallas Stars have defenseman Will Butcher on waivers. The Detroit Red Wings have Giovanni Smith, Taro Hirose, Kyle Crisculo, and Juuso Alcanura. So I'm not real sure about Detroit. We might not see any claims there. Giovanni Smith, maybe. The Florida Panthers have some interesting names too. Goalie Alex Lyon, Michael Delzato, Lucas Carlson. He's an interesting defenseman, as well as Alexei Heponiemi, Gerald Mayhew, and former Senator Chris Tierney, who signed with the Panthers as a free agent, but his deal was a two-way deal with a bigger AHL salary, so that I guess they probably weren't convinced he was going to be on the roster. But yeah, Tierney goes on waivers. The LA Kings have placed goalie Phoenix Copley and defenseman Jacob Maurer. The Minnesota Wild have Nick Patan and Mason Shaw on waivers, so they've confirmed that with those players going on waivers, that young top prospects like Marco Rossi, the former first rounder, and defenseman Kalen Addison, who they picked up in a trade from the Penguins a few years ago, have both made the opening night roster, so that's good for those young players. The Montreal Canadiens have placed defenseman Madison Bowie and Corey Schooneman. I was a little surprised on Schooneman. At one point in the preseason, it was looking pretty good for him to make the team. So be interesting to see which way they go. Caden Gooley, on the other hand, has been a real force and been tremendous for them. I've seen a lot of their preseason action against the Senators in the final 4 consecutive games that they played against them. And Gooley was really good, as was... I wouldn't say he was really good, but very physical. Back there was Arbor Jacki. Certainly made a big impression. I'm not sure that he's certainly not a refined product, but he's a player that's come a long way in the last few years. He's certainly big and strong, can defend okay, and he's not afraid to be physical and drop the gloves. So I don't know if Jacki is going to get on the roster, but it wouldn't shock me if he at least gets a small sample in the early part of the year to see where things go, especially while they're dealing with some injuries. Joel Edmondson will be out for a while, and will create a bit of an opening, so we'll see how this goes for the Habs. Young defense crew, they've also got some guys there, like obviously Harris too, and Barron, so I'm not sure what they're all going to do. They'll have to announce probably some other roster moves here by tomorrow. The next group of players, we got the New Jersey Devils with Mason Gertson. The Nashville Predators have Mark Jankowski, Kevin Gravel, Jordan Gross, and Roland McEwen, along with goalie Connor Ingram. Connor Ingram's another young goalie I thought might get maybe get a look here on the waiver wire. I'm not shocked he's on waivers based on the goalie tandem they have, but Ingram I thought might have a shot maybe at being the backup this year, but he might be interesting for somebody looking for more goalie depth. The New York Islanders have placed Grant Hutton, Paul Ledoux, and Otto Koivula on waivers. The New York Rangers have defenseman Jerard Fagerberg and forward Julian Gauthier on waivers. So there's another group of players for the Rangers. I know they've got some interesting roster decisions ahead. Looks like Kravtsov's going to stick, but he may not be in the regular lineup, at least to start the year. The Ottawa Senators announced last night after their Kraft Hockeyville game against Montreal that they were placing defenseman Jacob Larson and forwards Jace Howerluck and Scott Sabourin on waivers for the purpose of being demoted. So that's not a surprise for those three. It looks like they're signing Derek Brassard, who's there on a PTO, but that's not confirmed yet. Same with Florida, expected to sign Eric Stahl, who has been there on a PTO as well, but again, not confirmed as of right now. We've also got the Ottawa Senators also have a goalie Antoine Bibeau as well, so I would suspect Bibeau likely doesn't get picked up. We get the Philadelphia Flyers have Zach McEwen and Cooper Marody. McEwen's an interesting one. I know analytics-wise and the advanced stats are not kind to him, but I know he's typically been a fan favorite, somebody who plays hard and physical. At one point between his time in Vancouver and Philly was looked upon as being a decent fourth liner, so I don't know if he gets a look somewheres. The San Jose Sharks have Jeffrey Veal and goalie Aaron Dell. So Dell, I can't imagine he gets picked up. The Seattle Kraken have John Hayden and defenseman Michael Kempney. Some interesting names there. The Blues have Josh Levo, who was a heck of a minor leaguer last year and helped lead the Carolina organizations at the AHL level to the championship. So Levo had a phenomenal American Hockey League season last year. At one point, it was looking like he was likely going to make the Blues roster, but has not worked out. The Tampa Bay Lightning have defenseman Philippe Myers on waivers. The Maple Leafs, now here's some interesting names too. A couple are more surprising than others. Wayne Simmonds, who we're going to talk about further in the video, is on waivers, as well as Kyle Clifford, Victor Mete, and Adam Gaudette. Gaudette, of course, was signed as a free agent to a 1-year, one-way deal, but has been outplayed on a roster by a combination of players, including Dennis Malgin, who will obviously make this roster and likely get a top 6 role to start the year. He's played really well with Nylander, so I suspect he'll be on second line with Tavares and Nylander when Tavares is healthy. Of course, you got Matthews, Marner, and Bunting as your top line, and they're going to have a different group of bottom 6 players to fill out the roster. And like I've said before, I just wasn't sure there's going to be a spot for Simmonds. So we'll talk about his future just a little further. The Winnipeg Jets will place Jansen Harkins on waivers. That was a bit of a surprise. I thought he would be in a bottom 6 role for them. The Washington Capitals have Henrik Borgstrom and Brett Leeson as well as Axel Jonsson all on waivers today as well. So that's a ton of players. Like I said, with that number of players and all the line juggling going on right now to get your complete rosters ahead of tomorrow's cutoff, I would suspect that we're going to probably see a few claims. Wouldn't even be shocked if we get another couple small trades like we've had. Of course, we had a small deal between the Hawks and the Canucks the other night. And then, of course, earlier today, I had posted a video as well of a deal between the Oilers and the St. Louis Blues. We have a couple signings of players on PTO. We have the Toronto Maple Leafs confirming they've signed Aston Reese to a 1-year deal. The value of that deal is $840,630. That's pretty much maxing out their LTIR pool right to the penny. That's a Brandon Pridham special right there. Of course, who is the cap specialist with Kyle Dubas' team in Toronto. So that's what, if you're wondering why the number is kind of odd and the way it is they wanted to get every last penny and every last dollar in there. So that's why that is exactly the way it is. But Aston Reese signs in the Leafs organization and will be on that 4th line, obviously with guys like Simmonds and Gaudette and Clifford on waivers for the purpose of being demoted. You're going to see, obviously, I would suspect with Malkin playing the well like he did, like I said before, you're going to see him in a top 6 role, which will likely bump Kerfoot to your 3rd line. You're going to probably have a combination of Kerfoot, Kampf, and Yarncroke likely. And then, of course, on your 4th line, you're going to have players, obviously, like Aston Reese for sure, Nicholas Aubé-Kubel. And those two will likely be centered by Pierre Engvall. So that is likely how the Leafs roster is going to shape up. Like I said, not much of a spot for Simmonds. They could use the cap room, and it's unfortunate, but we'll get to him again in a moment here. Jimmy Vesey is getting a contract with the Rangers on a PTO. He gets a 1-year deal, $750. So he's back in the Big Apple to crack that roster, which is a bit surprising, to be honest, but he's gone to camp and been impressive, and they certainly have been quite happy with him. Now, as I mentioned as well, before we get to Wayne Simmonds, there is also some pretty serious allegations against NHL defenseman Ian Cole. Ian Cole is being accused of some pretty heinous things. Of course, right now, it's a case of, obviously this is all being looked into. But if this stuff is true, it's absolutely disgusting, and he could be in a heap of trouble. Certainly does not bode well for his character in the least, but he's certainly been accused of a combination of, you could say, grooming, sexual assault, to some degree. You could kind of fall into that, like obviously because his accuser was a minor, right? So there's, I don't know if it falls under being, other categories as well. It's really disgusting. So essentially, this girl who's come forward with some public accusations of Ian Cole basically said that he was well aware that she was a minor in high school, was having obviously some inappropriate stuff going on, and that she wasn't the only one, that he used to brag to her about all these other girls that he was kind of doing the same thing with. And it sounds absolutely disgusting. The NHL and his NHL team and his agents are all looking into it right now. It's really hard to say where this goes. I don't know how long it'll take, but I would think that considering how serious this sounds, that perhaps he'll be, maybe, I don't know if he'll be suspended pending investigation. We'll have to wait and see, but it's pretty serious stuff. Now on to the Maple Leafs. The Elliot Friedman was reporting earlier today that the Maple Leafs have made it known around the entire NHL that Wayne Simmonds is available for trade. Of course, as I mentioned, he's on waivers today. Now, he also has a modified no-trade clause. I would suspect that they probably can clear him through waivers, and that maybe a trade will be easier if he's cleared, because then if he's cleared and he's moved, then that team can put him in the minors if need be, or they can play him, at the NHL level for a while first, and they don't have to worry about him. They get some more flexibility that way. He does have a modified no-trade clause, and this is more about doing right by the player based on what the reports indicates, not so much that because they can bury him in the minors and get the cap relief that they need, that it's not really going to be impacting things. So ultimately, it's a situation where they could let him play for the Marlies. There's no doubt they could do that. But he made it known that he still feels like he has enough hockey left in him and he wants to play. And they feel like they owe him the opportunity to try to find him an opportunity somewhere else if there's not an opportunity on their roster. So this certainly sounds like it's pretty much the end of the road for Simmonds in Toronto. He does have the only year left on his deal right now. So obviously, it's only for the current season. There's no extra term, so it shouldn't be too difficult to trade if need be. But like I said, if they can't find a deal for him, he can play for the Marlies. He won't impact their cap situation once he clears him and is sent down. I just don't think they really want to do that to a veteran of his stature, over 1,000 games, in his mid-30s. I think they want to try to get him an NHL chance if they can do that. Obviously, they'll work with him as well, given he has a modified no-trade clause. So we'll see what happens, but it wouldn't be shocking once the waivers news comes out tomorrow if we do see a Simmonds trade perhaps take place shortly thereafter if they can find a place for him to go. So let me know your thoughts on all of the waivers news, claims you think might make sense, news on the Simmonds deal possibly coming together as well, and we'll talk about it further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis with all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.